everyone, my name is Danielle and welcome to another episode of Board Game Bakes. This week we're going to feature kites. And this game is produced by Floodgate games. It's a real-time game where you're working as a team to try and keep all your kites in the air. The kites are represented by timers that as you play cards you flip them, and you don't want any of the timers to run out before you're all done with your cards. Ideally, because that's how you win. So I really wanted to include marshmallows in the bake as clouds and decided to make it a Rocky Road Cupcake. Where I'll make a chocolate cupcake with nuts in it, vanilla frosting, and some marshmallows on top. And then as our kites, we're going to use rice papers to make them nice and thin and have some light be able to pass through them as well. Let's get started. Let's take a step back from cakes and do some smaller cupcakes. To begin, take your preferred nut. I use pecans, but you can use walnuts or it looks like whatever you want. And pour half a cup of that onto a baking sheet. Bake them at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 minutes until they become fragrant. While they're cooking, prep your ingredients. I used a box cake mix, but you could use your favorite chocolate recipe. To this I add 1¼ cups of water, 1/3 cup of oil, and 3 eggs. When your nuts are done, put them in another bowl so they could cool while you mix your batter. Mix for 2 minutes until it has thickened up. Take your nuts and chop them into dime-sized pieces. You want to toss them with a little flour, so this way they won't all sink to the bottom. Nobody wants that. Either add your nuts to the whole batter, or I chose to remove some batter first to make some plain chocolate cupcakes because some of my friends don't really like nuts. Fill your cupcake liners 2/3 of the way full of batter, because you don't want them to overfill, because then you can have burnt bottoms there. Bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 12 to 15 minutes depending on your oven. Let them cool a few minutes in the tin, then let them cool completely on a cooling rack before trying to ice them. To make your vanilla buttercream, whip 2 sticks of softened unsalted butter in a mixer until it's just starting to coat the sides. Gradually, or hey, you could do it all at once, add in 3 cups of powdered sugar. Mix until it has formed an icing-like consistency. It'll be a little thick. You're going to add in 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract and 1 tablespoon of cream. You could add more cream or milk depending on the icing consistency you're going for. Remove a small amount of the icing and put it in a small piping bag, where I use these to add tiny little tail star kites, or a string. Gradually add in sky blue food gel until you get a nice sky blue color. Go figure. Transfer the mixture to a large piping bag with either a 1M tip, or you could just cut off the top too. Let's move to our clouds next. We're slowly building our kite scene from the bottom up. If you haven't made homemade marshmallows before, you should definitely give them a try. They are tasty and they caramelize in a delicious way when toasted. To begin, set aside a mixture of 1/2 cup powdered sugar and 1/3 cup cornstarch for later. Have a 13x9 pan prepared by lining it with parchment paper that is overflowing on the sides, and this will make it easier to remove later. Next, start your process by pouring 3 packets of gelatin into a stand mixer with 1/2 cup of water. I like to mix it and make sure that the clumps get out, but theoretically you could just pour the gelatin on top of the water and leave it for like 10 minutes. While that's setting, add the rest of your water, which is 1/2 cup, 2/3 a cup light corn syrup, 2 cups granulated sugar, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt into a saucepan. Turn the burner on medium-high heat, and you're going to stir occasionally and heat the mixture to boiling until it gets to 240 degrees Fahrenheit. This will probably take around 10 minutes. Once you've reached that magic number, start your mixer on low, which will break up your gelatin. Slowly add your hot mixture into the mixer, and the goal is to hit the side as little as possible. But I was only marginally successful, and they turned out okay. Gradually increase your speed to medium-high, and whip until it's a thickened, glossy white mixture. At this point, add in your vanilla extract, and stir for no longer than a minute more. Now, working quickly, because it wants to set, pour your marshmallow mixture into your prepared pan, and smooth it down as much as desired or as much as you can before it starts hardening. Take your powdered sugar and cornstarch mixture and use a sieve to sprinkle it over the marshmallows. You want to let these preferably sit overnight. After it's set, flip it onto a cutting board. Sprinkle it with the remaining powdered sugar and cornstarch mixture. Now you want to take the remaining powdered sugar you have, which is 1/2 cup, and put into a plastic bag. Use a pizza cutter or a knife that's been greased with cooking spray to cut the marshmallows. To get the clouds, cut thin strips and break into little pieces with your hands. Then you're going to take those little pieces and put them into the bag with powdered sugar. Shake, 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 and then fish out the pieces, and you're going to put them back into the strainer and shake it to get off all the extra powdered sugar. And you're going to repeat the process till you have about a couple little pieces, depending on how many you want to put onto your cupcakes. This didn't use all the marshmallows from the recipe, so I recommend that you cut some into big squares for s'mores. Yum yum. Hey everyone, while you're here, make sure you hit like, it really helps me out. Okay, we've reached the actual board game component, the kites. I try to give it a light, in the sense of weight and passing through things, element instead of just putting cookies on top of the cupcakes. So these are made using rice or spring roll paper. To create the structure for some of them, melt some chocolate and use it as a glue to stick 2 small pretzel rods together. Let it harden, which shouldn't take very long. To prep our kites, get a shallow bowl or tray of water, cut strips of your rice paper and submerge into the water until it's no longer stiff at all. Gently remove it from the water and stretch it out on a silicone mat. So you want to smooth it down, but do it gently so it doesn't rip. For my first attempt, I tried painting the artwork. However, it spreads a lot, which isn't good for some of the more involved details, and it's also very dark. Instead, you can use edible markers to make your creations. I intentionally didn't fill it all in because I wanted light to come through it. To make the standard kites, color an area of rice paper that's slightly bigger than the length and width of your pretzels. Let it dry a bit, and then cut it out using a knife. Then, this is the tricky part, attach the top part of your kite to the top of the pretzel, and you want to slowly peel it off and stick it onto the pretzel. If you don't use this technique, then it tends to fold up on itself and it'll be wasted. That may have happened more than a few times. For the more intricate kites, draw them on the rice paper. Once it has dried a bit, use a knife to cut out the shapes, but this time you're going to just leave them on the silicone mat to dry. You could put a cookie sheet on top of them, so this way they'll start drying without curling up, but eventually you want to remove the tray and let them finish drying. I think this helped them to not curl up too much. Time to put it together. Take your chocolate pecan cupcakes and pipe on a generous amount of blue icing onto the cake. You could choose to make it all spirally, or I wound up smoothing most of them out so this way there's more surface area. Apply 3 or 4 marshmallow clouds onto the frosting. Now for the best part, put one of your kites on top. As a final touch, use the white icing you set aside earlier to add a string to the kite. Now you're ready to fly! Eat a kite cupcake. Thanks for watching another episode of Board Game Bakes. I hope you enjoyed seeing these cupcakes, which are probably a little easier to divvy up than when you make a whole cake. This real-time game is actually pretty fun, but I'm a huge fan, or really like it all, real-time games. So, what's your favorite real-time game? Convert me. Let me know in the comments below. Keep playing games and keep them sweet. Bye!